Hello everyone, my name is Reverend Dr. Roger Paul, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about a subject that everyone is curious about but no one seems to know much about. And that is what really happens when we die. First of all, let me say that these concepts are from the Urantia book, and this is in reality what really happens once we pass and go on our trip to the mansion worlds and on to paradise to meet God the Father. This is the whole process. This is the extended version that explains everything in detail as much as possible, without making it too long. So sit back and enjoy. This is what really happens when we die. Have you ever wondered what happens after you die? This is the story of that wonderful journey from this life, the vestibule of your new existence, to the moment when we stand before God, the Universal Father. Death is really a transition. If you are a believer in God, the Universal Father, then death is not final. Physical death is a transition from one form of existence to another, progressively higher form of existence. This is the story of that transition from our physical form to our spiritual awakening to stand before God the Father. First, to understand what happens at death, there's a couple things you need to understand that happens before death. First is the father fragment, or the thought adjuster. This is a piece of the Universal Father that is given to you as a gift around the age of 5.5 to 6 years old. And what happens with this gift is that you receive a little fragment of God the Father, in which eventually you will fuse with this fragment once you learn to do the will of the Father in your life and in your existence. So let's go on a little bit further. The psychology of a child is naturally positive, not negative. So many mortals are negative because they were so trained. It is said that the child is positive, reference is made to his moral impulses, those powers of mind whose emergence signals the arrival of the thought adjuster. Now, when a child makes the first moral decision in his life, that is when the thought adjuster comes. And that can come just about any time, but normally it comes between 5.5 and 6 years old. When a moral being chooses to be unselfish, when confronted by the urge to be selfish, that is a primitive religious experience. No animal can make such a choice. Such a decision is both human and religious. It embraces the fact of God consciousness and exhibits the impulses of social service, the basis of the brotherhood of man. When mind chooses a right moral judgment by an act of free will, such a decision constitutes a religious experience. Now, this first moral choice or religious experience is when the thought adjuster arrives. Thought adjusters volunteer for service as soon as the personality forecasts have been relayed to Vinnington. They are not actually assigned until the human subjects make their first moral personality decision. The first moral choice of the human child is automatically indicated in the seventh mind adjutant and registers instantly by way of the local universe creative spirit over the universal mind gravity circuit of the conjoint actor in the presence of the master spirit of the super universe jurisdiction, whom forthwith dispatches this intelligence to Divinington. Adjusters reach their human subject on Urantia on an average just prior to the 6th birthday. In the present generation, it is running 5 years, 10 months, and 4 days. That is on the 2,134th day of terrestrial life. Now, a couple things you need to know. Divinington is one of the planets that surround Paradise. This is one of the planets of the Father Circuit. And Divinington is where all thought adjusters come from. That piece of God the Father comes from an actual planet and is trained there. All right. a couple other things you probably ought to know too is they talk about the creative spirit. The creative spirit is a local universe creative spirit. That is Jesus's or Michael's helper or confidant. In other words, it's his partner. And each universe has one of these spirits. Okay, this is a picture of Divinington. Divinington is in a unique sense, is the bosom of the Father, the personal communion sphere of the universal Father, and thereon is a special manifestation of his divinity. The Divinington is the paradise rendezvous of the thought adjusters, but is also the home of numerous other personalities and other beings taking origin in the universal Father. So not only are thought adjusters original in the universal Father, or fragments from the universal Father, but there are also other entities that are as well. Thus is the stage of the human mind set for the reception of adjusters. But as a general rule, they do not immediately appear to indwell such mind, except on those worlds where the Spirit of Truth is functioning as a spirit coordinator of these different spirit ministries. If the spirit of the bestowal sons is present, the adjusters unfailingly come the instant the seventh adjutant mind spirit begins to function, and signalize to the universe mother spirit that it has achieved in potential the coordination and the associated six adjutants of prior ministry to such a mortal intellect. Therefore have the divine adjusters been universally bestowed upon all normal minds of moral status on Urantia ever since the day of Pentecost. Okay, Pentecost is when the day that the Spirit of Truth is poured out upon all the world on the resurrection, after the resurrection of Jesus. And this is the spirit of the bestowal sons. Jesus is our bestowal son, known as Michael in the universe. These bestowal sons pour out their spirit, which is part of the spirit circuit of the second person of deity, the eternal Son. Okay, and they work in conjunction with the local universe mother spirit, who pours out what? The Holy Spirit. Okay, and the sixth adjutant that they're talking about here is the spirit of worship. So when we reach that spirit of being able to worship, that's when the adjuster has universally been bestowed. Okay. All of the differing physical types of the planetary series of mortals alike enjoy the ministry of thought adjusters, guardian angels, and the various orders of the messenger host of the infinite spirit. All alike are liberated from the bonds of flesh by the emancipation of natural death, and all alike go hence to the Morantia worlds of spiritual evolution and mind progress. So, as we die and we're released from the bonds of the flesh, we automatically go to the Morantia worlds. Okay? Now this can happen in two ways. In a resurrection, mass resurrection, or we can go right after death and appear on the mansion worlds on the third day. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Guardian angels or guardians of destiny. When a mortal mind breaks through the inertia of animal legacy and attains the third circle of human intellectuality and acquired spirituality, a personal angel in reality too will henceforth be wholly and exclusively devoted to this ascending mortal. And thus these human souls, in addition to the ever-present and increasingly efficient indwelling thought adjusters, receive the undivided assistance of these personal guardians of destiny, and all their efforts to finish the third circle, traverse the second, and attain the first. So, when we make that spiritual decision and reach the third circle is basically us deciding we want to follow the will of God, 2 angels are automatically assigned to us, 2 personal seraphic guardians. In actuality, 2 personal seraphic guardians and 2 cherubim are assigned to us, 1 cherubim and 1 seraphim. One is the angel will be the primary and the other will be the recorder, and vice versa as they switch off and take breaks with each other. In any chance that the both need to take a break and recharge, then the cherubim take over the recording responsibility. So at all times during the rest of your life, you have 4 angels that go everywhere you go, are there to assist you all the time, and they try to help you reach that first psychic circle. Seraphim are known as guardians of destiny, are not known as guardians of destiny until such time as they are assigned to the association of a human soul who has realized one or more of 3 achievements, has made a supreme decision to become godlike, has entered the 3rd circle, or has been mustered into one of the reserve corps of destiny. Guardians of destiny are drawn from the ranks of more experienced angel personalities of all orders of seraphim who have qualified for this service. All the surviving mortals of adjuster fusion destiny have temporary guardians assigned, and these associates may become permanently attached when mortal survivors attain the requisite intellectual and spiritual development. So this is some of the orders of angels that the guardian seraphim are pulled from. When a seraphic pair accepts guardian assignment, they serve for the remainder of the life of that human being. The complement of being one of the 2 angels becomes the recorder of the undertaking. These complemental seraphim are the recording angels of the mortals of the evolutionary worlds. The records are kept by a pair of cherubim, a cherubim and a seraphim, who are always associated with the seraphic guardians. But these records are always sponsored by one of the seraphim. So it's one of the seraphims are always responsible for your records. And this is a picture of the cherubim, seraphim, 2 guardian angels, and in the middle is the 3rd circle, or the 2nd or 3rd circle. The adjuster is the presence of the Father, the Spirit of truth, the presence of the sons. The divine endowments are unified and coordinated on the lower levels of human spiritual experience by the ministry of the guardian seraphim. The angel servers are gifted in combining the love of the Father and the mercy of the Son in their ministry to mortal creatures. And herein is revealed the reason why the seraphic guardian eventually becomes a personal custodian of the mind patterns, memory formulas, and soul realities of the mortal survivor during that interval between physical death and morontial resurrection. None but the ministering children of the infinite spirit could thus function in behalf of the human creature during the phase of transition from one level of the universe to another and higher level. Even when you engage in your terminal transition slumber, when you pass from time to eternity, a high Supernafin likewise shares the transit with you as the custodian of creature identity and surety of personal integrity. So it's only the seraphim that can take over this job and transport your memory patterns, your memory formulas, your mind patterns, your memory formulas, and the reality of your soul to the mansion world. And it's a higher order of angel, the Supernafim, that does the same thing as you take that final sleep on your way to paradise. Angels do not invade the sanctity of the human mind. They do not manipulate the wills of mortals. Neither do they directly contact with the indwelling adjusters, the father fragments. The guardians of destiny influences you in every way possible manner consistent with the dignity of your personality. Under no circumstances do these angels interfere with the free action of the human will. Neither angels nor any other of the universe personality have power or authority to curtail or abridge the prerogatives of human choosing. In other words, there is no possible way for any of these beings to possess your mind. They are only there to help you. Free will is basically supreme throughout the universe. What do our angels do after death? Having told you something of the ministry of seraphim during natural life, I will endeavor to inform you about the conduct of the guardians of destiny at the time of the mortal dissolution of their human associates, or death. Upon your death, your records, identity, specifications, and the Morontia entity of the human soul conjointly evolved in the ministry of mortal mind and the divine adjuster are faithfully conserved by the destiny guardian together with all other values related to your future existence. Everything that constitutes you, the real you, except the identity of continuing existence represented by the departing adjuster and the actuality of personality. So everything except your adjuster and your actual personality, the guardian seraphim are in charge of. The instant the pilot light in the human mind disappears, the spirit luminosity which seraphim associate with the presence of the adjuster, the attending angel reports in person to the commanding angels, successively, of the group, company, battalion, unit, legion, and host, and after being duly registered for the final adventure of time and space, such an angel receives certification by the planetary chief of seraphim for reporting to the evening star or other lieutenant of Gabriel, in command of the seraphic army of this candidate for universe ascension. And upon being granted permission from the commander of this highest organizational unit, such a guardian of destiny proceeds to the first mansion world, and there awaits the consciousizing of her former ward in the flesh. In the case the human soul fails of survival, after having received the assignment of a personal angel, the attending seraphim must proceed to the headquarters of the local universe, there to witness to the complete records of her complement as previously recorded. Next she goes before the tribunals of the archangels to be absolved from blame in any of the matter of the survivor failure of her subject, and then she goes back to the world again to be assigned to another mortal of ascending potentiality and to some other division of seraphic ministry. But angels minister to evolutionary creatures in many ways aside from the service of the personal or group guardianship. Personal guardians whose subjects do not go immediately to the mansion worlds do not tarry there in idleness awaiting the dispensational roll call of judgment. They are assigned to numerous ministering missions throughout the universe. Now, what is this dispensational roll call of judgment? If you have not chosen to follow the will of God in your life, and you have not reached that third psychic circle, you may not awaken on the mansion worlds on the third day. You may have to wait till the dispensational roll call of judgment. And this happens every millennium, around 1,000 years. And then in grouped large masses of humans who have passed are taken to the mansion worlds and revived. And they do these things in groups because many of these people are tardy in their spiritual development in their life. So that's why they wait till a later time. Now, when this happens, while you're asleep for this 1,000 years, it doesn't matter, because when you awaken, it's as if you just went to sleep. You'd have no idea that you've been asleep that long. And the same way when you awaken on the third day on the mansion world, straight from this planet, you have no consciousness of time. You feel like you're immediately woken up. Now, when you do, your family is sitting there waiting for you. because the broadcasts of space on the mansion worlds let them know that you're about to be awakened on the mansion world. So it really doesn't matter if it's been 3 days or 1,000 years. The guardian seraphim is the custodial trustee of the survival values of mortal man's slumbering soul, as the absent adjuster is the identity of such an immortal universe being. When these two collaborate in the resurrection halls of Mansonia, in conjunction with the newly fabricated Morancha form, there occurs the reassembly of the constituent factors of the personality of the mortal ascender. So when you awaken on the on the mansion world, your adjuster there is there to immediately go back inside the mind, and you become partners with the adjuster once again in this new Morancha form. The difference is you can actually communicate now with that fragment of God once you get to the mansion worlds. And eventually, normally by about the 6th mansion world, you get to fuse with that father fragment, and you become a real citizen of the universe rather than just a faith citizen of the universe. The adjuster will identify you. The guardian seraphim will repersonalize you, and then represent you to the faithful monitor of your earth days, the thought adjuster. And even so, when a planetary age ends and those in the lower circles of mortal achievement are foregathered, it is their group guardians who reassemble them in the erection halls of the mansion spheres. Even as your record tells, and he shall send his angels with a great voice and shall gather together his elect from one end of the realm to the other. Now these beings who are on the lower circles are assigned group guardians, and they are all resurrected at the same time in group resurrections. The technique of justice demands that a personal or group guardian shall respond to the dispensational roll call in behalf of all non-surviving personalities. The adjuster of such non-survivors do not return, and when the rolls are called, the seraphim respond, but the adjusters make no answer. This constitutes the resurrection of the unjust. In reality, the formal recognition of the succession of the creature existence. This roll call of justice always immediately follows the roll call of mercy, the resurrection of the sleeping survivors. But these are matters of which are of concern to none but the supreme and the all-knowing judges of survival values. Such problems of adjudication do not really concern us. So what this tells us is this: that there are many that choose not to survive past this life. They have no spiritual compass, in other words. They do not wake up. And when the rolls are called, their guardian seraphim answers, but the adjuster does not, because the adjuster has found nothing of survival value to continue on. And when that happens, there is no hell, but what happens is the wages of sin is death. And what is that? That's the secession of existence. So that's which makes that creature who he is removed, and they are never given a vehicle to continue on. And that's the secession of creature existence. And that's what they call the roll call of justice. All right. Group guardians may serve on a planet age after age and eventually become custodians of the slumbering souls of thousands upon thousands of sleeping survivors. They can so serve on many different worlds in a giving system, since the resurrection response occurs on the mansion worlds. So when the resurrection response appears, they can appear on the mansion world with the records of thousands and thousands of individuals at once. Now these are those individuals that are resurrected in mass. Now the personal guardians, if you make decision in your life to follow the will of God, you're already assigned 2 guardian angels, and those guardian angels appear just for you. It is indeed an epic in the career of an ascending mortal, the first awakening on the shores of the mansion world, there for the first time actually to see your long-loved and ever-present angelic companions of earth days, and there also to become truly conscious of the identity and the presence of the divine monitor who so long indwelt your mind on earth. Such an experience constitutes a glorious awakening, a real resurrection. So when you awaken on the mansion world, you not only know that the thought adjuster is within you and you can communicate with that divine monitor, but also you actually get to see your 2 angelic companions. Now, why are there only 2, not 4? Because the cherubim remain on the planet to minister to other beings. It's only the 2 seraphim that follow you to the mansion worlds. On the Morontia spheres, the attending seraphim, there are 2 of them, are your open companions. These angels do not only consort with you as you progress through the career of the transition worlds, in every way possible assisting you in the acquirement of Morontia and spiritual status, but they also avail themselves of the opportunity to advance by study in the extension schools for evolutionary seraphim maintained on the mansion worlds. Alright, so these are your open companions, and the seraphim themselves have an opportunity to advance also. Before leaving the mansion worlds, all mortals will have permanent seraphic associates or guardians. In other words, everyone will have 2 guardians assigned to them. And as you ascend the Morontia spheres, eventually it is the seraphic guardians who witness and certify the degree of your eternal union with the thought adjuster. Together they have established your personality identities as children of the flesh from the worlds of time. Then, with your attainment of the mature Morontia estate, they accompany you through Jerusalem and the associated worlds of the system progress and culture. After that, they go with you to Adentia and its 70 spheres of advanced socialization, and subsequently they will pilot you to the Melchizedeks and follow you through the superb career of the universe headquarters worlds. And when you have learned the wisdom and the culture of the Melchizedeks, they will take you on to Salvington, where you will stand face to face with the sovereign of all Nebanon, Jesus, or Michael. And still will these seraphic guardians follow you through the minor and major sectors of the super-universe and on to the receiving worlds of Uversa, remaining with you until you have finally in Sakanafim for the long Havona flight. So that's your pathway all the way to God the Father. Some of the destiny guardians of the attachment during the mortal career follow the course of the ascending pilgrims through Havona, and others bid their long-time mortal associates a temporary farewell, and then, while these mortals traverse the circles of the central universe, these guardians of destiny achieve the circles of Seraphington, and they will be awaiting on the shores of paradise when their mortal associates awaken from the last transit sleep of time to the new experiences of eternity. Such ascending seraphim subsequently enter upon divergent services in the finale corps and in the seraphic corps of completion. The mansion worlds, the next step. This is basically a picture of the 7 super universes that surround paradise. What we can see through our telescope is mostly the 7th super universe. The size of it is so enormous, we can only see basically through the center of our super universe, but we do get some glimpses of the first outer space level, and those universes are developing. But if we had a powerful telescope enough, we could look through the center of the universe, because we're way out here on the very edge. We could look right straight through the center and actually actually we would see paradise if it weren't for the dark islands of space that surround it. The Creator Son. When on Urantia spoke of many mansions in the Father's universe, that's Jesus. And in certain sense, all 56 of the encircling worlds of Jerusalem are devoted to the transitional culture of the ascending mortals. But the 7 satellites of world number 1 are more specifically known as the mansion worlds. So this is a picture basically of Jerusalem, the capital. And the mansion worlds we're talking about are all surrounding this very first satellite, 1 through 7. But Jerusalem has 56 satellites. It has 7 planets, and each one of those has 7 planets around them. What's interesting is Earth is about the same size as one of these mansion worlds. But these planets that surround Jerusalem, this is the Finaliter world, is much, much larger, and Jerusalem is much, much larger than that. It's like 100 times larger. John the Revelator saw a vision of the arrival of a class of advancing mortals from the 7th mansion world to their first heaven, the glories of Jerusalem. He recorded, "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and those who had gained the victory over the beast that was originally in them, and over the image that persisted through the mansion world, and finally over the last mark and trace, standing on the sea of glass, having the harps of God, and singing the songs of deliverance from mortal fear and death." Perfected space communication is to be had on these worlds, and your anywhere reception of such communication is made possible by carrying the harp of God, a Morontian contrivance compensating for the inability to directly adjust the immature Morontian sensory mechanism to the reception of space communications. So this harp you carry basically allows you to understand the space communications. It's like a communication mechanism. And John the Revelator talked about the sea of glass where we land, okay, when we get to that point. But this 7th heaven they're talking about is really one of the mansion worlds. And this is a picture of the 7 mansion worlds surrounding the first world, or the Finaliter world, which surrounds Jerusalem. The resurrection of the sleeping survivor after death. And this is what happens after you die. There are 2 ways to awaken on the mansion worlds. You can awaken after the 3rd day, or during a resurrection roll call. From time to time, on motion on the planetary authorities or the system ruler, special resurrections of the sleeping survivors are conducted. Such resurrections occur at least every millennium of planetary time, when not all but many of those who sleep in the dust awake. These special resurrections are the occasion for mobilizing special groups of ascenders for specific service in the local universe plan of immortal ascension. There are both practical reasons and sentimental associations connected with these special resurrections. Throughout the earlier ages of an inhabited world, many are called to the mansion spheres at the special and the millennial resurrections. But those survivors are repersonalized at the inauguration of a new dispensation associated with the event of a divine son of planetary service. Now, what are they talking about here? These resurrections occur when a son of God is sent to this planet. Sometime in the future, we will receive what's called a magisterial son, which will come and incarnate just like Jesus did on this planet as an adult. And later on, when we get closer to the age of light and life, when we become more spiritually enlightened, we will get a Trinity teacher son of service. These are the sons of God they're talking about. Mortals of the dispensational or group order of survival, with the arrival of the first adjuster on an inhabited world, the guardian seraphim also make their appearance. They're indispensable to terrestrial escape. So without the guardian angels, the seraphim, you cannot leave this planet. Throughout the life lapse period of the sleeping survivor, the spiritual values and eternal realities of their newly evolved and immortal souls are held in sacred trust by the personal or by the group guardian seraphim. Thus are the sleeping survivors of a planetary age repersonalized in the dispensational roll calls. But with regard to the non-salvable personalities of the realm, no immortal spirit is present to function with the group guardians of destiny, and this constitutes cessation of creature existence. While some of your records have pictured these events as taking place on the planets of mortal death, they all really occur on the mansion worlds. So if you fail to survive, the cessation of creature existence will happen during your transition to the mansion world. Once you get to the mansion worlds, with each mansion world you go to, you're allowed to visit one more planet. Alright, and this slide indicates from the time of leaving the material world until you continue a first stage spirit on Salvington, you will undergo just 570 separate and ascending morontial changes. So in other words, your new body will be tuned 570 times until you get to the first stage spirit. 8 of these occur in the system, 71 in the constellation, and 491 during your sojourn on the spheres of Salvington. So as you progress upward higher and higher and higher through the mansion worlds, through the constellation, and eventually to Salvington, your morontia form will be continually tuned for a higher and closer spiritual awareness. And that's what they're talking about here. Throughout the earlier ages of an evolutionary world, few mortals go to judgment on the third day. But as the ages pass, more and more the personal guardians of destiny are assigned to the advancing mortals, and thus increasing numbers of these evolving creatures are repersonalized on the first mentioned world on the third day after natural death. On such occasions, the return of the adjuster signalizes the awakening of the human soul, and this is the repersonalization of the dead, just as literally as when the en masse roll call is called at the end of a dispensation on the evolutionary worlds. So when you awaken on the third day on that third mansion world, your adjuster signals that awakening. In other words, when your adjuster comes back, that peace of God comes back, so comes your personality, and you're reconsciousized on the mansion worlds. There are 3 groups of individual ascenders. The less advanced land on the initial or the first mansion world. The more advanced group may take up the morontia career on any of the intermediate mansions worlds in accordance with previous planetary progression. The most advanced of these orders really begin the morontia experience on the 7th mansion world. So if you're of a higher spiritual awareness, you may wake up on one of the higher mansion worlds. Mortals of the probationary dependent orders of ascension, we can guess what that is, they arrive of an adjuster constitute identity in the eyes of the universe, and all indwelt beings are on the roll calls of justice. But temporal life on the evolutionary world is uncertain, and many die in youth before choosing the paradise career. Such adjuster indwelt children and youths follow the parent of the most advanced spiritual status, and thus going to the system finale world, the probationary nursery, on the third day at a special resurrection or at the regular millennial or dispensational roll calls. So, if your children die before they receive their adjuster, they awaken when either of the advanced parents awaken on the mansion worlds, on these probationary nurseries. If they die after they've received their adjuster, they do the same thing until they reach the age of decision. So, if you have a child that's died before it's reached that age of decision, they will automatically go to the probationary nursery on the finality world of the mansion worlds. And there, when you arrive, they will also be reconsciousized, and you will continue to raise them just as you did here. Children who die when too young to have thought adjusters are repersonalized on the finality world of the local system, concomitant with the arrival of either parent on the mansion worlds. A child acquires physical entity at mortal birth, but in the manner of survival, all adjusterless children are reckoned as still attached to their parents. In due course, thought adjusters come to indwell these little ones, while the seraphic ministry to both groups of the probationary dependent orders of survival is in general similar to that of the more advanced parent, or is equivalent to that of the parent in case only one survives. Those attaining the third circle, regardless of the status of their parents, are accorded personal guardians. Similar probation nurseries are maintained on the finality spheres of the constellation and the universe headquarters for the adjusterless children of the primary and secondary modified orders of ascenders. Mortals of the primary order of ascension. These mortals belong to the adjuster-fused type of evolutionary life, but they are most often representative of the final phases of human development on an evolving world. In other words, they actually fuse with their adjusters before they leave this world. These glorified beings are exempt from passing through the portals of death. They are submitted to sun seizure. They are translated from among the living and appear immediately in the presence of the sovereign sun on the headquarters of the local universe. So basically, when they fuse with their adjusters, they immediately appear before Jesus or Michael on Salvington. That's what they call sun seizure. These are the mortals who fuse with their adjusters during mortal life, and such adjuster-fused personality traverse space freely before enclosed in it with a Morontia form. These fused souls go by direct adjuster transit to the resurrection halls of the higher Morontia spheres, where they receive their initial Morontia investiture, just as do all other mortals arriving from the evolutionary worlds. And this is a picture of that happening, basically. This usually happens from mansion world number 6, but it can happen on world 5 or even as early as your human life here on Earth. With the establishment of the planetary era of light and life, many go to the universe Morontia worlds by the primary modified order of translation. Further along in the advanced stages of settled existence, when the majority of mortals leaving a realm are embraced in this class, the planet is regarded as belonging to this series. Natural death becomes decreasingly frequent on these spheres, long settled and enlightened life. There is something real, something of human evolution, something additional to the mystery monitor which survived death. This newly appearing entity is the soul, and it survives the death of both your physical body and your material mind. This entity is the conjoint child of the combined life and the efforts of the human you in liaison with the divine you, the adjuster. This child of human and divine parentage constitutes the surviving element of terrestrial origin, and it is the Morontia self, the immortal soul. This child of persisting meaning and surviving value is wholly unconscious during the period from death to repersonalization and is in the keeping of the seraphic destiny guardian, throughout the season of waiting. You will not function as a conscious being following death until you attain the new consciousness of Morontia on the mansion worlds of Satania. So these movies where you see ghosts walking around at their graveyards and things like that is human imagination, because you're not conscious from the time you die until the time you awaken on the mansion worlds, and no person is allowed to come back to this planet for a whole dispensation, which is 1,000 years. So there would be no one here on this planet that you would want to talk to when you came back if you were allowed to. So people are not allowed to come back and talk to their loved ones. At death, the functional identity associated with the human personality is disrupted through the cessation of vital motion. Human personality, while transcending its constitution parts, is dependent on them for functional identity. The stoppage of life destroys the physical brain patterns of mind endowment, and the disruption of mind terminates mortal consciousness. The consciousness of that creature cannot subsequently reappear until a cosmic situation has been arranged which will permit the same human personality again to function in relationship with living energies. Now, you wonder, well, what about these people coming back to life? Well, they have not actually physically completely died. They may cease to function for a long period and come back to life, but the thought adjuster has not left the body. If the thought adjuster leaves the body, that constitutes succession of life. They don't come back after that. So, if you come back awakened from the quote dead, you have not actually died to the point where your thought adjuster has left. During the transit of surviving mortals from the world of origin to the mansion world, whether they experience personality reassembly on the third period or ascend at the time of a group resurrection, the record of personality constitution is faithfully preserved by the archangels on their worlds of special activities. These beings are not the custodians of personality. These are not seraphim, these are archangels, as the guardian seraphim are the soul. But it is nonetheless true that every identifiable factor of personality is actually safeguarded in the custody of these dependable trustees of mortal survival. As to the exact whereabouts of mortal personality during the time intervening between death and survival, we do not know. So, if there's a long period between the resurrection, these parts of you who make you who you are basically safeguarded by the archangels. The situation which makes repersonalization possible is brought about in the resurrection halls of the Morontia receiving planets in a local universe. Herein, their life assembly chambers, the supervising authorities provide that relationship of universe energy, morontial, mindal, and spiritual, which makes possible the reconsciousizing of the sleeping survival. The reassembly of the I'm having trouble with that word today. Constituent parts of a one-time material personality involves the fabrication of a suitable form, a Morontia energy pattern, in which the new survivor can make contact with non-spiritual reality, and within which the Morontia variant of the cosmic mind can be inserted. 2. The return of the adjuster to the waiting Morontia creature. The adjuster is the eternal custodian of your ascending identity. Your monitor is the absolute assurance that you yourself and not another will occupy the Morontia form created for your personality awakening. And the adjuster will be present at your repersonality reassembly to take up once more the role of paradise guide to your surviving self. 3. When these prerequisites of repersonalization have been assembled, the seraphic custodian of the potentialities of the slumbering immortal soul, with the assistance of numerous cosmic personality, bestows this Morontia entity upon and in the awaiting Morontia mind-body form, while committing this evolutionary child to the Supreme, to eternal association with the awaiting adjuster. And this completes the repersonalization, reassembly of memory, insight, and consciousness of identity. So basically they put you, all the parts of you back together, you're reunited with your adjuster. And soon thereafter, on one of the mansion worlds, you actually get to fuse with that adjuster and become one with this fragment of God. And this is a picture of a group resurrection. This is a mansion world number 1 reassembly place on the mansion world. This is where you actually are resurrected in a group. The resurrection halls for 7 races of time. From the temple of new life there extend 7 radial wings. The resurrection halls of the mortal races, each of these structures is devoted to the assembly of one of the 7 races of time. There are 100,000 personal resurrection chambers in each of the 7 wings, terminating in the circular class assembly halls, which serve as the awakening chambers for as many as 1 million individuals. These halls are surrounded by the personality assembly chambers of the blended race of the normal post-Adamic world. Okay, so this is the 7 halls which can hold 1 million survivors, and it represents the original 7 races. And right after that, they are surrounded by resurrection halls that hold areas for all the mixed races from the 7 races, which will have many of those in the future, eventually becoming one race. The fact of repersonalization consists in the seizure of the encirculated Morontia phase of the newly segregated cosmic mind by the awakening of the human self. So you awaken on the mansion worlds. The phenomena of personality is dependent on the persistence of the identity of selfhood reaction to the universe environment, and this can only be effected through the medium of mind. Selfhood persists in spite of a continuous change in all the factor components of self. In the physical life, the change is gradual. At death and upon repersonalization, the change is sudden. The true reality of all selfhood, personality, is able to function responsively to universe conditions by virtue of the increasing changing of its constituent parts. Got it right that time. Stagnation terminates in inevitable death. Human life as an endless change of the factors of life, unified by the stability of the unchanging personality. When you thus awaken on the mansion worlds of Jerusalem, you will be so changed, the spiritual transformation will be so great that if it were not for your thought adjuster and that your destiny guardian or your guardian angel, who so fully connect up your new life with your new worlds, with your old life in your first world, you would at first have difficulty in connecting the new Morontia consciousness with the reviving memory of your previous identity. Notwithstanding the continuity of personal selfhood, much of the mortal life would be at first seem to be a vague and hazy dream, but time will clarify many mortal associations. Now this is an example of a 3rd day resurrection. Okay, this is when you awaken on the 3rd day, and this is the chamber where you will awaken, and your archangel and your thought adjuster will be there to join you. The thought adjuster will recall and rehearse for you those memories and experiences which are a part of and essential to your universe career. If the adjuster has been a partner in the evolution of aught in the human mind, then these worthwhile experiences survive in the eternal consciousness of the adjuster. But much of your past life and its memories, having neither spiritual meaning or Morancha value, will perish with the material brain. Much of the material experience will pass away as one-time scaffolding which have bridged you over to the Morancha level, no longer serves a purpose in the universe. But personality and relationships between personalities are never scaffolding. Mortal memory of personality relationship has cosmic value and will persist. On the mansion worlds you will know and be known, and more, you will remember and be remembered by your one-time associates in the short but intriguing life on Urantia. And this is Mansion World number 1. It says here, the very center of all activities of the first Mansion World is the Resurrection Hall, the enormous temple of personality assembly. These gigantic structures consist of the central rendezvous of the seraphic destiny guardian, the thought adjuster, and the archangels of the resurrection. The life carriers also function in these celestial beings in the resurrection of the dead. So that's all the beings that's involved in your resurrection. Just as a butterfly emerges from the caterpillar stage, so will the true personalities of human beings emerge on the mansion worlds, for the first time revealed apart from their one-time enshroudment in the material flesh. The Morancha career in the local universe has to do with the continued elevation of the personality mechanism from the beginning Morancha level of soul experience up to the final Morancha level of progressive spirituality. On the first mansion world, all survivors must pass the requirements of the parental commission from their native planets. The present Urantia commission consists of 12 parental couples recently arrived who have had mortal experience in rearing 3 or more children to the pubescent age. Service on this commission is rotational and is only for 10 years as a rule. All who fail to satisfy these commissioners as to their parental experience must further qualify by service in the homes of the material sons on Jerusalem or in part in the probationary nurseries on the Finalator's world. So, what does that mean to us? That means if you have not had the experience of raising at least 3 children, then you must qualify that by either serving, helping the material sons on Jerusalem raise their children, or raise other people's children in the probationary nurseries on the Finalator worlds to full age. Okay. Also, you'll be able to visit that first, from the first mansion world, the Finalator world. That gives you clearance to go back and forth to the Finalator world. And the Finalator world is where these probationary nurseries are. Mansonia number 2 more specifically provides for the removal of all phases of intellectual conflict and for the cure of all varieties of mental disharmony. The effort to master the significance of Morancha Moda begun on the first mansion world. Here it is more earnestly continued. The development on Mansonian number 2 compares with the intellectual status of the post-magisterial sun culture of the ideal evolutionary worlds. So as we go to mansion world number 2 or Mansonian number 2, on that world we get rid of all our mental disharmonies and intellectual conflict. Okay? And on mansion world number 2 we get to visit the Morancha world, okay, which is the second sphere that surrounds Jerusalem. When sojourning on the first mansion world, you have permission to visit the first of the transition worlds, the headquarters of the Finalators, and the system probationary nursery for the nurture of undeveloped evolutionary children. When you arrive on Mansonia number 2, you receive permission periodically to visit Transition World number 2, where are located the Morontia Supervisor headquarters for all Satania and the training schools of the various Morontia orders. Here we need to know that Satania is our local system. When you reach Mansion World number 3, you are immediately granted a permit to visit the third transitional sphere, the headquarters of the angelic orders and the home of the various system training schools. Visits on Jerusalem from this world are increasing profitable and are ever heightening interest to the advancing mortals. By the way, Satan was named after Satania before he rebelled, and not the other way around, so just let you know that. So from World number 3, we're able to visit World number 3, which is the angelic world. When you arrive on the fourth mansion world, you have well entered upon the Morontia career. You have progressed a long way from the initial material existence. Now you are given permission to make visits to Transition World number 4. There to become familiar with the headquarters and the training schools of the super angels, including the brilliant evening stars. Though the good offices of the super angels of the fourth transition world are the Morontia visitors are enabled to draw very close to the very orders of the sons of God during the periodic visits to Jerusalem. For new sectors of the system capital are gradually opening up to the advancing mortals as they make these repeated visits to the headquarter worlds. New grandeurs are progressively unfolding to the expanding minds of these assemblies. And this is the super angel world, world number 4. Get to visit that when we get to mansion world number 4. Transport to the fifth mansion world represents a tremendous forward step in the life of Morontia Progressor. The experience on this world is a real foretaste of Jerusalem life. Here you begin to realize the high destiny of the loyal evolutionary worlds, since they may normally progress to the stage during their natural planetary development. The culture of this mansion world corresponds in general to that of the early era of light and life on the planets of normal evolutionary progress. And from this you can understand why it is so arranged that the highly cultured and progressive types of beings who sometimes inhabit these advanced evolutionary worlds are exempt from passing through one or more or even all of the mansion spheres. And this is mansion world number 5. It's interesting here that between mansion world number 5 and 6, most beings actually fuse with their adjustment. And on this one, we get to visit the world of the suns. Sojourners on this sphere are permitted to visit Transition World number 6, where they learn more about the high spirits of the super universe. Although they are not able to visualize many of these celestial beings, here they also receive their first lessons in the prospective spirit career, which so immediately follows graduation from the Morontia training of the local universe. This is what we're talking about today. The fusion of the thought adjuster occurs sometimes on the fifth, but usually on the sixth mansion world for the majority of ascenders. And this is the world of the spirit, and this is world number 6. We also get sometimes the assistant system sovereign visits this mansion world, and we'll get to see him. The seventh mansion world. The experience on this sphere is the crowning achievement of the immediately post-mortal career. During your sojourn on here, you will receive the instruction of many teachers, all of whom will cooperate in the task of preparing you for residence on Jerusalem. Any discernible difference between those mortals hailing from the isolated and retarded worlds of those survivals from the more advanced and enlightened spheres are virtually obliterated during the sojourn on the seventh mansion world. Here you will be purged of all the remnants of the unfortunate heresy, unwholesome environment, and unspiritual planetary tendency. The last remnants of the mark of the beast are here eradicated. What are they talking about? The mark of the beast. They're talking about our barbaric tendencies, right? We have evolved from beast, and this is the world where they remove the last of that inheritance. Now begins the formation of classes for graduation to Jerusalem. You have gone from world to world as individuals, but now you prepare to depart for Jerusalem in groups, although within certain limits, an ascendant may elect to tarry on the seventh mansion world for the purpose of enabling a tardy member of his earthly or Mansonia working group to catch up with him. So if you have a partner that's going through the mansion worlds with you and they're not quite ready to go on to the next, you can tarry on the seventh mansion world and wait for them to catch up with you so you can experience this journey to paradise together. And this is the seventh mansion world. And from the seventh mansion world, we get to visit the world of the Father, which surrounds Jerusalem. Now, this is not one of the worlds of the Father that surround paradise. All right. Also had a view of the ascending citizen core of perfecting mortals on Jerusalem, for he wrote, "But you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem." Here he said Jerusalem, but Jerusalem is the name of the city. And an innumerable company of angels to the grand assembly of Michael, that's our Creator Son of Jesus, and to the spirits of just men being made perfect. After mortals have attained residence on the system headquarters, Jerusalem, no more literal resurrections will be experienced. So once you become a citizen of Jerusalem, no more literal resurrections from planet to planet will be experienced. You'll still have the 570 changes. The Moracha form granted you on departure from the mansion world career as such as you will see you through to the end of the local universe experience. Changes will be made from time to time, but you will retain the same form until you bid it farewell when you emerge as a first stage spirit, preparatory for transition to the super universe worlds of ascending culture and spirit training. So your Moracha form serves you through 570 different forms until you get to your first spiritual form. Mortal death is a technique of escape from the material life in the flesh, and the Mansonia experience of progressive life through 7 worlds of corrective training and cultural education represents the introduction of mortal survivors to the Moracha career, the transition life, which intervenes between the evolutionary material existence and the higher spiritual attainment of the ascenders of time, who are destined to achieve the portals of eternity. Adentia, the headquarters of our local constellation. Your next step after leaving Jerusalem will be Adentia, the headquarters of our constellation of Norlashadek. And this is a picture of just that. We go from the Jerusalem and the 7 mansion worlds. Here's the 7 mansion worlds, and here's Jerusalem. We become a citizen of Jerusalem. And eventually we get to progress to Adentia, the headquarters of the constellation of Norlashadek, and that's the constellation which we live in. These 700 minor worlds are technical spheres of practical education and the working of the entire local universe, and are all open to all classes of intelligent beings. These training schools of special skill and technical knowledge are not conducted exclusively for ascending mortals, although Moracha students constitute by far the largest group of all those who attain these courses of training. When you are received on any one of the 70 major worlds of social culture, you are immediately given clearance for each of the 10 surrounding satellites. The advanced endowment of Adentia and its surrounding spheres is well nigh perfect. They could hardly equal the spiritual grandeur of the spheres of Salvington, but they far surpass the glories of the training worlds. Your sojourn on Adentia and its associated spheres will be chiefly occupied with the mastery of group ethics, the secret of pleasant and profitable interrelationship between the various universe and superuniverse orders of intelligent personalities. This entire sojourn on the constellation training worlds, culminating the advential citizenship, is a period of true and heavenly bliss for the Morontia progressor. Throughout your sojourn on the system worlds, you were evolving from a near animal to a Morontia creature. You were more material than spiritual. On the Salvington spheres, you will be evolving from Morontia being to the status of a true spirit. You will be more spiritual than material. But on Adentia, ascenders are midway between the former and their future estates, midway in the passage from evolutionary animal to ascending spirit. During your whole stay on Adentia and its worlds, you are as the angels. You are constantly progressing, but all the while maintaining a general and typical Morontia status. The Morontia life, extending as it does over the various stages of the local universe career, is the only possible approach whereby material mortals could attain the threshold of the spirit world. What magic could death and natural dissolution of the material body hold that such a simple step would instantly transform the mortal and material mind into an immortal and perfected spirit? Such beliefs are but ignorant superstitions and pleasing fables. Salvington, headquarters of the local universe, creation of Michael of Nebadon, as we know him as Jesus. This is a picture of Salvington and the worlds that surround Salvington, and then there are 490 worlds that surround Salvington, and each one of these, the primary has a primary sphere, and tributary spheres around them. Our next step is Salvington, our local universe headquarters. Here we meet Jesus, also known as Michael of Nebadon, where we stand before him hoping to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Our Creator Son is the personification of the 611,121st original concept of the infinite identity of simultaneous origin in the universal Father and the eternal Son. The Michael of Nebadon is the only begotten Son, personalizing this 611,121st universal concept of divinity and infinity. He is the only Son to us that we know. There's 700,000 more in each of the other 700,000 universes, plus 300,000 in reserve we know about. His headquarters is in the threefold mansion of light on Salvington, and this dwelling is so ordered because Michael has experienced the living of all three phases of intelligent creature existence: spiritual, morontial, and material. Because of the name associated with his seventh and final bestowal on Urantia, he is sometimes spoken as Christ Michael. And on the day when you are prepared to leave Adentia for Salvington career, you will pause and look back on one of the most beautiful and most refreshing of all your epochs of training in this side of paradise. But the glory of all its augments as you ascend inward and achieve increased capacity for a large appreciation of divine meanings and spiritual values. There are 7 spirits of God like lamps burning from the throne, which the prophet saw in the symbols of visions. But he did not see the seats of the 4 and 20 sentinels about these 7 adjutant mind spirits. This record represents the confusion of these 2 presentations, one pertaining to the universe headquarters and the other to the system capital. The seats of the 4 and 20 elders are on Jerusalem, the headquarters of your local inhabited worlds. So the 24 that we're talking about is in the local system, right? The others are in Salvington. But it was of Salvington that John wrote, "And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings of voices, the universe broadcasts through the local system. And we hear these universe broadcasts through the harps of God. He also envisaged the directional control creatures of the local universe, the living compasses of the headquarters worlds. This directional control in Nebadon is maintained by the four control creatures of Salvington, who operate over the universe currents and are ably assisted by the first functioning mind spirit, the adjutant of intuition, the spirit of quick understanding. The description of these four creatures, called beasts, has been sadly marred, and they are of unparalleled beauty and exquisite form. And this is Salvington with the 490 satellites surrounding. You can see the main satellites and their sub-satellites. And this is another picture, and this is the 10th group of worlds. Interesting. From Salvington, we next move to the minor sector of U minor, the third. So this is where we leave and become a first stage spirit. On the minor sector of Uversa, ascenders become the first stage spirit. As you can see here, this is a first stage spirit. And this is when we move to U minor, the third. A major sector comprises about 1/10 of a super universe and consists of 100 minor sectors, 10,000 local universes, about 100 billion inhabited worlds. These major sectors are administered by the perfections of days, the Supreme Trinity personalities. The minor sector of Ensa consists of 100 local universes, which we are of one, has a capital called U minor the third. This minor sector is number 3 in the major sector of Splandon. Splandon consists of 100 minor sectors. Splandon is our major sector, and has headquarters worlds called U major the fifth. It is the 5th major sector of the super universe of Avanton, the 7th segment of the grand universe. Thus you can locate your planet in the scheme of the organization and the administration of the universe and universes. So, this is U minor the third, right? And we come from the 3rd sector. Okay? And it says here, U minor the third, the headquarters of your minor sector. Ensa is surrounded by the 7 spheres of the higher physical studies of ascendant life. The grand universe number of your world is 5,342,482,337,666. That's our register number of the Earth, or Urantia. That is the registry number on Uversa and on Paradise, your number in the catalog of the inhabited worlds. I know the physical sphere registry number, but it is of such an extraordinary size that will be of little practical significance to the mortal mind. In other words, there's so many planets that if he gave us this physical sphere number, that it would make no sense to us. Your planet is a member of an enormous cosmos. You belong to well nigh infinite family of worlds. But your sphere is just as precisely administered and just as lovingly fostered as if you were the only inhabited world in all existence. From our minor sector, now we move on to U major the fifth, the headquarters of your major sector, Splandon, is surrounded by the 70 spheres of the advanced intellectual training of the super universe. U major the fifth, the headquarters of your major sector of Splandon. When you are translated to the major sector of Splandon, ascenders become 2nd stage spirits. So you go from 1st stage on the minor sector to 2nd stage on the major sector. So as a major sector, here it is, U major the fifth, you become a 2nd stage spirit. We know from our records that mortals are spirits of the first order during their sojourn on the minor sector, and that they advance to the second order when translated to the major sector, and to the third when they go forward to the central training worlds of the super universe. As the magnificent satellites of Uversa are concerned with your final spiritual preparation for Havona, so are the 70 satellites of U Major the Fifth devoted to your super universe intellectual training and development. From all Orvanton, there are gathered together the wise beings who labor untiringly to prepare the mortals of time for their further progress toward the career of eternity. Most of this training of ascending mortals is conducted on the 70 study worlds. And this is the 70 study worlds of U Major the Fifth. Uversa is our next step. This is the capital world of Orvanton, the seventh super universe, the dwelling place of the Ancients of Days. Uversa, the capital of Orvanton. Orvanton is the name of the seventh super universe in which we live. Uversa is the spiritual and administrative headquarters for approximately 1 trillion inhabited or inhabitable planets. The glory, grandeur, and perfection of the Orvanton capital surpass any of the wonders of the time-space creations. If you look at a map of Paradise and the super universe, what we're talking about here is this. We're way out here on the very edge, Urantia, okay, or Earth. And then we make our way to Jerusalem, our local headquarters, and then eventually to Salvington, right, and Uversa, and eventually we go through the minor and major sectors, and eventually go to Paradise. Uversa is the capital of Orvanton. Okay? An ascender arrives at one of the 70 specialized worlds of the seventh cluster of Uversa as a third stage spirit. And this is a picture of that. And this is the 490 satellite worlds that surround Uversa. Okay, and when we get here, we're third stage spirits. And you can come from see Paradise off in the distance, and where we came from back here. Alright? We know from the records that mortals are spirits of the first order during their first sojourn in the minor sector, and they advance to the second order, they translated to the major sectors, and to the third order as they go forward to the central training worlds of the super universe. A primary Sakanafin prepares an ascender to depart from the shores of Uversa and Havona. The primary Sakanafim prepare you for that long flight to Havona, okay, to the worlds of Savona. And arriving pilgrims of time are always received on the associated worlds, but our departing graduates are always dispatched for Havona directly from the shores of Uversa. The 7 circuits of the 1 billion worlds of Havona. Havona pilgrims, when spirit development is complete, even though not replete, when the surviving mortal spheres for the long flight to Havona, prepares for the long flight to Havona, the haven of evolutionary spirits. On earth you were a creature of flesh and blood. To the local universe you were a Marancha being. To the super universe you were an evolving spirit. With your arrival on the receiving worlds of Havona, your spiritual education begins, in reality and in earnest. Your eventual appearance on Paradise will be as a perfected spirit. The journey from the super universe headquarters to the Havona receiving spheres is always made alone. From now on, no more class or group instruction will be administered. You are through with the technical and administrative training of the evolutionary worlds of time and space. Now begins your personal education, your individual spiritual training. From first to last, throughout all Havona, the instruction is personal and threefold in nature: intellectual, spiritual, and experiential. On Urantia, you pass through a short and intense test during your initial life of material existence. On the Mansion worlds and up through your system, constellation, and local universe, you traverse the Morontia phases of ascension. On the training worlds of the super universe, you pass through the true spirit stages of progression and are prepared for the eventual transit to Havona. On the 7 circuits of Havona, your attainment is intellectual, spiritual, and experiential. And there is a definite task to be achieved on each of these worlds, on each of these circuits. We're talking about 1 billion worlds here. And this is the 7 circuits. The 7th being the outermost, the 1st being the innermost. Life on the divine worlds of the sensory universe is so rich and full, so complete and replete, that it is wholly transcends the human concept of anything a created being could possibly experience. The social and economic activities of this eternal creation are entirely dissimilar to the occupations of material creatures living on evolutionary worlds like Urantia. Even the technique of Havona thought is unlike the process of thinking on Urantia. It says here, when an intelligent being first attains the central universe, they are received and domiciled on the pilot world of the 7th Havona circuit, the outer ring. As the new arrivals progress spiritually, attaining identity comprehension of their super universe master spirit, transferred to the 6th circle. The first act of your Havona career will be to recognize and thank your transported seraphim, or Sakanaphim, for the long and safe journey. When you are presented to those beings who will sponsor your early Havona activity, next you go to the register and arrival and prepare your message of thanksgiving and adoration for dispatch to the Creator Son of your local universe, the Universe Father, who made it possible your sonship career. This concludes the formalities of the Havona arrival, whereupon you are accorded a long period of leisure for free observation, and this affords opportunity for looking up old friends, fellows, and associates for the long ascension experience. You may also consult the broadcast to ascertain who of the fellow pilgrims have departed for Havona since the time of your leaving Uversa. Notice here, when you are transported to Havona, you're transported not any longer by a seraphim, but a Sakanaphim, because that's an angel of the the 7 super universes. All right, and when you get transported to paradise, it will be a Supernaphim, a different type of angel. The pilgrims land on the receiving planet of Havona, pilot world of the 7th circuit, is only one endowment of perfection of purpose. The universal Father has decreed, "Be you perfect, even as I am perfect." That is the astounding invitation command broadcast to the finite children of the worlds of space. The promulgation of that injunction has set all creation astir, and the cooperative effort of the celestial beings to assist in bringing about the fulfillment and realization of that tremendous command of the first source and center. So all these beings are working with you to bring that about. And this is another slide of the 7 circuits of Havona and paradise, way off into the distance. When intelligent beings first attain the central universe, they are received and domiciled on the pilot world of the 7th circuit. As new arrivals progress spiritually, attaining identity comprehension of their super universe master spirit, they are transferred to the 6th circle. It is from these arrangements in the central universe that the circles of progress in the human mind have been designated. After ascenders have attained a realization of supremacy, they are thereby prepared for the deity adventure. They are taken to the 5th circuit, and after attaining the infinite spirit, they are transferred to the 4th. Following the attainment of the eternal Son, they are removed to the 3rd, and when they have recognized the universal Father, they go to sojourn on the 2nd circuit of the worlds, where they become more familiar with the paradise host. Arrival on the first circuit of Havona signifies the acceptance of the candidates of time into the service of paradise. Indefinitely, according to the length and nature of the creature ascension, they will tarry on the inner circuit to progressive spiritual attainment. From this inner circuit, the ascending pilgrim pass inward to paradise, residence, and admission to the core of finality. Paradise, home of the universal Father, the eternal Son, and the infinite Spirit. This is paradise, the universal Father, the eternal Son, and the infinite Spirit. Between the central isle of paradise and the innermost of the Havona planetary circuits, there are situated in space 3 lesser circuits of special spheres. The innermost circuit consists of the 7 secret spheres of the universal Father. The second group is composed of the 7 luminous worlds of the Sun, and the outermost are the 7 immense spheres of the infinite Spirit, the executive headquarter worlds of the master spirits. And this is a representation of that. The Father circuit, the Sun circuits, and the Paradise circuits. You'll notice here one of these is the Bennington. This is where the thought adjusters come from. Paradise is the home, and the Havona the workshop and playground of the finalators. And every God-knowing mortal craves to be a finalator. Oh, I hear some noise in the background, like a cat playing with a bell. These 3 7-world circuits of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit are spheres of excellent grandeur and unimagined glory. Even their material or physical construction is of an order unrevealed to you. Each circuit is diverse in material, and each world of each circuit is different, excepting the 7 worlds of the Sun, which are alike a physical constitution. All 21 are enormous spheres, and each group of 7 is differently eternalized. As far as we know, they always have been like paradise. They are eternal. There exists neither record nor tradition of their origin. Paradise arrivals. On reaching paradise with residential status, you begin the progressive course of indivinity and abstinency. Your residence on paradise signifies that you have found God, and that you will be mustered into the core of finality. Of all the creatures of the grand universe, only those who are Father fused are mustered into the core of the finality. Now you see the importance of this fusion. Only such individuals take their finaliter oaths. Other beings of paradise perfection or attainment may be temporarily attached to this core of finality, but they are not of eternal assignment to the unknown and unrevealed mission of this accumulating host of the evolutionary and perfecting veterans of time and space. Paradise arrivals are accorded a period of freedom, after which they begin their association with the 7 groups of the primary Supernafem. They are designated paradise graduates when they have finished their course with the conductors of worship, and then as finalators are assigned an observational and cooperative service to the ends of the far-flung creation. As yet there seems to be no specific or settled employment for the mortal core of finalators, though they serve in many capacity on the worlds of time and space. This narrative, together with what has been revealed to you, and with what you may acquire in connection and instruction respecting your own world, represents an outline of the career of an ascending mortal. The story varies considerably in the different super-universes, but this recital record a glimpse of the average plan of mortal ascension as it is operative in the local universe of Nebadon, in the 7th segment of the grand universe, the super-universe of Avanton, sponsored by a mighty messenger of Uversa. Thus ends the story of what really happens when you die. With faith, we realize that physical death is just a transition to a new form of existence, a form of eternal life, unending adventure, spiritual fulfillment, and unending service. We can truly see what Jesus came to teach us, the concept of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. We become part of the spiritual family of the universe. Thank you for watching. Good luck with your life and your progress to paradise. you.